Before the discussion truly begins, there's already a sense that something big is about to unfold. Reliable leak confirmations have finally broken the silence, pointing to a new One Piece chapter arriving this week, and the hints surrounding it are anything but ordinary. What started as quiet rumors from obscure sources has now evolved into concrete signals from trusted insiders, suggesting that Chapter 1169 could dive straight into one of Elbaf's darkest and most important moments. At the center of this anticipation lies a powerful mystery: Loki, his legendary hammer, and the tragedy that reshaped Elbaf forever. From the shadow of King Harold's death to the possible involvement of figures like Shanks and Scapargaban, every clue hints at revelations that could redefine long-standing assumptions. If these pieces truly come together, Chapter 1169 won't just move the story forward. It may completely change how we understand the past, setting the stage for an explosive future in the world of One Piece. Alright, before we dive any deeper and keep this anime storytelling journey alive together, make sure you subscribe, smash that like button, and share your thoughts in the comments so the hype doesn't die down. Now then, let's get right into the discussion. Let's roll. Throughout the day, several hints had actually surfaced from lesser-known leak sources. However, those details were deliberately held back until confirmation finally came from a far more credible leaker. That trusted source confirmed that the new chapter is indeed scheduled to release this week and shared 3 major hints worth breaking down. The first hint, by far the strongest, borderlines on a direct spoiler. The image shown was Mjolnir, Thor's legendary hammer from Norse mythology, portrayed with an epic aura as someone grips it tightly. Of course, the reference isn't to Thor himself, but to One Piece's version of Loki. The implications of this hint are massive. Chapter 1169 is expected to reveal Loki's legendary hammer for the very first time, an iconic weapon that has remained a mystery until now. More importantly, the chapter may finally explain how Loki obtained it. The most widely accepted theory is that this moment takes place during a devastating flashback tied to Elbaf's greatest tragedy, the day everything changed. This flashback is believed to expose the full scale of the conflict between Loki and his father, King Harold. It would depict the chaos that consumed Elbaf, culminating in the king's tragic death at the hands of his own son. It is during this turning point that Loki likely claims the legendary hammer, either from a sacred site within Elbaf or as a direct inheritance taken after his clash with Harold. How Oda chooses to frame this scene is easily one of the most anticipated elements of the chapter. The second hint comes from a leaker whose track record isn't always consistent, so it should be approached with caution. The image in question shows Shanks unleashing an overwhelming wave of Haki, complete with Oda's signature visual effects that signal the presence of a true king. All signs point to one major possibility: Shanks will appear in Chapter 1169. Naturally, the biggest question is whether this sets up a direct confrontation between Shanks and Loki. A clash between two figures of that magnitude would have consequences not just for Elbaf, but for the balance of the entire One Piece world. The most reasonable prediction is that this scene appears near the end of the chapter, serving as a powerful cliffhanger, classic Oda style. Imagine a chapter filled with Elbaf's tragic past, only for the final panel to show Shanks arriving, his Haki erupting, before the story abruptly cuts. That kind of ending fits perfectly with how Oda builds maximum hype. Still, it's highly unlikely we'll see a full-fledged fight from Shanks. Oda is famously reserved when it comes to showing Shanks' true power, often saving those moments for much later, more critical stages of the story. At the very least, we might see the aftermath or consequences of such a confrontation, perhaps an explanation of how Loki was ultimately defeated, captured, and bound in chains. This would neatly tie together Loki's fate following the chaos in Elbaf. The third hint, once again from a not entirely consistent leaker, features a classic treasure chest. The most logical interpretation connects it to a long-standing mystery: the identity of the thief who stole Elbaf's legendary Akuma no Mi. That devil fruit, which should have been heavily guarded, vanished during the turmoil, leaving behind only a shadowy figure. This chapter could potentially revisit that theft, but with added details, whether it's a clearer silhouette, a partial reveal, or crucial clues pointing toward the culprit's identity. Given how significant this devil fruit appears to be for Elbaf's storyline and the broader narrative ahead, it would make perfect sense for Oda to start lifting the veil during this flashback. Taken together, the 3 main hints for Chapter 1169 all point toward a single central focus: the tragic death of King Harold, the origin of Loki's hammer, and the foundation of Loki's motivations moving forward. The hammer-related hint stands as the most reliable, while the other two still require further confirmation. From there, the story may transition into Loki's actions after the tragedy, his attempts to leave for the sea, the continued unrest, until Shanks ultimately steps in to put an end to it all. On top of that, there's another striking piece of information, an image showing Shanks standing side by side with Skapar. What makes this even more intriguing is the leaker's cryptic message, implying that this development had been hinted at long before. The core message is clear. Chapter 1169 will feature a meaningful interaction between Shanks and Skapar, and it's far more than a simple cameo. This is where the wild theories begin to gain traction within the community. One of the strongest suggests that King Harald was not defeated by Loki alone. Instead, many believe that Shanks and Skapar may have worked together to bring him down. When viewed logically, the theory holds weight. King Harald is portrayed as an extraordinarily powerful giant, one of Elbaf's strongest figures. Taking down someone of that caliber would require individuals of extreme strength. And who fits that role better than two former members of the Pirate King's crew, veterans who once sailed alongside Gold, Roger himself. But from that point, even deeper questions start to surface. Did Loki eventually set his sights on Shanks because he believed Shanks was responsible for his father's death? If that's the case, it could finally explain the long-rumored tension between Loki and Shanks that, until now, has remained purely speculative. Another major question revolves around Skapar involvement. Why did he choose to step in at this moment? A name that surfaced earlier but has yet to receive any official confirmation. What's clear is that Oda is still carefully guarding several massive secrets. One thing is certain, Shanks and Skapar are not playing minor roles in Chapter 1169. Their presence will be pivotal to the story moving forward. Given that both are legendary figures in the world of One Piece, it's no surprise that fan excitement continues to skyrocket. And the hype doesn't stop there. The same leaker followed up with another statement that sent the community into a frenzy. According to them, the Christmas spoilers for Chapter 1170 are expected to be legendary, as if Oda is planning to end the year with a massive explosion of reveals. That kind of claim isn't made lightly. When a veteran leaker speaks with that level of confidence, it usually means something truly shocking is on the way. This has also led many to believe that Shanks and Skapar appearance will be positioned right at the very end of Chapter 1169. If that turns out to be true, it fits perfectly with Oda's classic storytelling pattern. A chapter closes on a crucial, tension-filled moment, only for the next chapter to fully unpack it. A cliffhanger like this would almost certainly throw the community into chaos during the break. Especially if Chapter 1170 lives up to the promise and delivers major revelations. Expectations are already soaring, even before any official spoilers have dropped. Moving on to the second hint, the atmosphere becomes far more mysterious. This clue also comes from the main leaker, giving it considerable weight. The shared image shows several figures standing still. Only their bodies and legs are visible, no faces, no heads. In the distance, a single silhouette can be seen approaching. That silhouette is clearly not a random character, considering it was highlighted as a key hint by the leaker. Naturally, speculation immediately exploded. The most popular theory suggests that the figures standing still are members of Shanks' crew, while the approaching silhouette is Shanks himself. If that's accurate, the scene could depict a crucial moment in the formation or reaffirmation of Shanks' crew, possibly tied closely to events on Elbaf. However, there's a second theory that's just as intriguing. What if those figures aren't Shanks' crew at all, but the Holy Knights? And what if the approaching silhouette is Shamrock? If this is the case, the implications are massive, directly linking Elbaf to world government schemes and some of the deepest secrets in One Piece. There's also additional information tied to the third hint. According to the leak, this chapter will feature a collaboration that almost no one would have expected. Loki, Shanks, and Skapar are said to fight side by side against Harald, who wields the power known as Dome Reverse. The battle is described as brutally intense and completely over the top, reaching an absurd level of destruction, until Harald is finally defeated by the combined might of these three. This isn't just a standard clash, it's a full-scale collision between monster-tier powers. The main spotlight, however, is clearly on Loki. The leaker even stated that Loki deserves to be hyped as much as possible, because this chapter is where he truly shines. Until now, Loki has remained a mysterious figure, but this is the moment where his real strength is finally revealed in a concrete way. The chapter positions him as far more than a side character, presenting him instead as a key figure with terrifying power. There's also an intriguing detail involving Loki's legendary hammer, long rumored to resemble Mjolnir. This chapter reportedly explains how Loki obtained that weapon. What makes it even crazier is the claim that Loki can make the hammer float and even throw it at enemies behind him without turning around. This strongly suggests that Loki possesses some form of levitation ability, similar to how Thor is portrayed in the Avengers films. When you look at it more closely, this battle setup actually makes sense. Harald is said to have once fought Rock's Sbaii on nearly equal footing. With the added power of Dome Reverse, Harald's strength would logically approach Sbaii at his peak. And considering that even Sbaii could only be defeated through the combined efforts of Roger and Garp, it feels reasonable that taking down Harald would require the joint force of Shanks, Gabon, and Loki. However, this is where a major mystery emerges. If Loki fought alongside Shanks and Gabon, and clearly wasn't the one who killed Harald, then why was Loki imprisoned afterward? Even more puzzling, why was Gabon involved in keeping Loki locked away? This raises the possibility of a secret agreement between the three, or perhaps an action taken by Loki after the battle that forced Shanks and Gabon to make an extreme decision. Well, this chapter will be amazing, bro. So, big thanks to everyone who stayed all the way to the end. If anything's on your mind or you've got questions, drop them in the comments below. Appreciate you for watching, and catch you in the next videos.